You stare at your phone, scrolling mindlessly through the same content that once captivated you. The promotion at work, the new restaurant, even that hobby you were passionate about just months ago. None of it sparks anything inside you anymore. You've tried explaining this feeling to friends, but the words fall short. "I'm just tired," you say, but deep down, you know it's more than fatigue. It's as if something fundamental has shifted inside you, leaving behind this strange emptiness where excitement used to live. What if I told you this isn't just ordinary boredom or burnout? What if, according to the profound insights of philosopher Immanuel Kant, your soul is actually attempting to communicate something vital, that it's ready for an entirely new way of experiencing reality? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why this feeling of nothing exciting you anymore might be the most important spiritual message you've received in years. This feeling you're experiencing has a particular quality to it, a peculiar emptiness that seems to hollow out even the experiences that once brought you joy. You might worry something's wrong with you, that perhaps you're becoming depressed or ungrateful. Our culture often tells us that when nothing excites us, the solution is simply to find new external stimuli, a different job, relationship, or location. But what if this approach fundamentally misunderstands what's happening? Kant, the revolutionary 18th century philosopher, would suggest something radically different. That this feeling isn't a problem to fix, but a doorway your soul is inviting you to step through. At the heart of this experience lies what Kant called the transcendental shift, a profound reorientation in how we relate to reality itself. You see, according to Kant, we don't experience the world directly as it is. Instead, our minds actively shape and structure our experiences through certain innate categories and forms. When nothing excites you anymore, it's not that the world has become less interesting. It's that your soul has outgrown your current framework for experiencing it. Just as a butterfly must break through its chrysalis, your consciousness is ready to break through the limitations of how you've been perceiving reality. Think of it like wearing the same glasses prescription for years after your vision has changed. Everything appears dull and out of focus, not because the world has dimmed, but because your capacity for seeing has evolved beyond your current lenses. Physically, you might feel this as a heaviness in your chest, a persistent restlessness, or a foggy mental state that makes it difficult to fully engage with anything. These sensations aren't random. They're your embodied wisdom communicating that your current way of organizing experience has reached its natural conclusion. The mind and body, working as one integrated system, are signaling that it's time to transcend your existing categories of understanding and perception. Kant identified 4 distinct stages of transcendental awakening that perfectly describe what you're going through right now. Understanding these will help you recognize exactly where you are in this process and what's coming next. Let's explore each one. The first stage is what Kant would call categorical exhaustion. This is when the categories and concepts you've used to organize your experience of life simply stop working. Activities, relationships, and achievements that once provided meaning now feel strangely empty. You find yourself asking, "Is this all there is?" You've mastered the game you've been playing, and rather than feeling accomplished, you feel an unexpected hollowness. This isn't failure. It's actually success. Your soul has extracted all the growth possible from your current framework, and is ready for expansion. Think about how a child eventually outgrows even the most beloved toy. The toy hasn't changed, but the child's consciousness has evolved beyond what that toy can offer. Similarly, you haven't become jaded. You've evolved beyond your current mental framework. The second stage is the disorientation of synthesis. Here, your mind begins dismantling its own structures. You might experience this as confusion about your identity, purpose, or values. Things that once seemed clear become questionable. You may find yourself drawn to entirely new ideas or perspectives that previously wouldn't have interested you. This stage can be unsettling because our minds crave certainty. But this temporary disorientation is actually a necessary clearing of space. Kant would explain that your mind is breaking down its old synthetic structures, the ways it has combined and organized sensory experience, to make room for a more expansive understanding. Like demolishing an old, limiting structure before building something more magnificent, this uncomfortable phase serves a vital purpose in your evolution. The third stage is what Kant termed noumenal glimpses. As your old frameworks dissolve, you begin experiencing brief moments of seeing beyond the ordinary constructs of your mind. You might suddenly perceive beauty in something mundane, feel an unexpected connection to strangers, or experience time differently. These aren't random emotional fluctuations. They're actually your consciousness temporarily accessing what Kant called the noumenal realm, reality as it exists beyond the limiting structures of human perception. These glimpses often come when you least expect them, during a routine walk, in the middle of a conversation, or while doing something completely ordinary. They're like cracks in a wall, allowing light from a much larger room to shine through. Pay attention to these moments. They're previews of your expanded consciousness. The fourth stage is transcendental restructuring. This is when your mind begins constructing new, more expansive categories for experiencing reality. You start finding new meaning, but it's different from before. Deeper, more nuanced, less dependent on external validation or achievement. What excites you now comes from a place of authentic alignment rather than conditioned desires. This is the stage where genuine renewal begins. The key insight from Kant is that this restructuring doesn't happen by adding more information or experiences to your existing framework. It requires a fundamental shift in how you organize experience itself. It's not about finding new content for your consciousness. It's about upgrading the container. The central question underlying all these stages is profound. What if the purpose of life isn't to accumulate experiences within our existing framework, but to continuously transcend our frameworks altogether? What if each time we reach this place where nothing excites us, it's because we're being called to a higher mode of consciousness? I'd like you to take a moment right now to reflect on where you might be in this journey. When did you first notice this feeling that nothing excites you anymore? What specifically stopped bringing you joy, and have you noticed any unexpected new interests emerging? Share your experience in the comments below with, "I first noticed my soul wanting something new when yes, and now I'm discovering." Your sharing creates a map for others walking this same path, helping them feel less alone in what can be a deeply isolating experience. When we articulate these transitions, we not only clarify them for ourselves, but illuminate the way for others. Now, let me share a practical approach to working with this transcendental shift. drawing directly from Kant's philosophy. Unlike typical advice that might push you to find new external stimuli, this approach focuses on transforming your relationship with experience itself. First, practice what Kant called transcendental observation. Rather than trying to fix or change your feelings of apathy, simply observe them with curiosity. Notice the specific quality of this emptiness. How exactly does it differ from ordinary boredom or fatigue? Pay attention to when it intensifies and when it temporarily lifts. The key is to shift from experiencing yourself as someone who feels apathetic to observing the phenomenon of apathy arising within your consciousness. This subtle but powerful shift begins separating your essential awareness from the limiting frameworks that no longer serve you. Next, engage in categorical questioning. Identify the fundamental categories through which you've been experiencing life. Ask yourself, what defines success for me? What constitutes meaningful connection? What determines whether an experience is valuable? Then radically question these definitions. For example, if you've defined success primarily through achievement, ask yourself what success might look like if contribution or presence were the primary metrics instead. This questioning doesn't need to produce immediate answers. The process itself begins loosening the rigid structures that are limiting your experience. The third practice is synthetic experimentation. Deliberately combine elements of your experience in new ways. This might mean bringing a philosophical mindset to physical activities, applying artistic thinking to your work, or approaching spiritual questions through scientific inquiry. Kant would explain that this deliberate remixing of your mental categories helps create new synthetic frameworks for experiencing reality. The goal isn't to find the right combination, but to develop flexibility in how you organize experience itself. Finally, practice noumenal receptivity. Create space in your daily life for experiences beyond conceptual thinking. This might be through meditation, time in nature, artistic expression, or deep listening. The key is to temporarily suspend your analyzing mind and allow reality to present itself to you without immediately categorizing or judging it. Kant recognized that while we can never directly access the thing in itself, what he called the noumenal realm, we can develop greater receptivity to what lies beyond our constructed experience. As you engage with these practices, you may notice subtle shifts in how experiences register in your consciousness. Things won't suddenly become exciting in the old way. That's not the goal. Instead, you'll begin developing a qualitatively different relationship with reality itself, one characterized less by the pursuit of stimulation and more by a profound appreciation of meaning and connection. Here we encounter the beautiful paradox at the heart of Kant's philosophy. The very feeling that nothing excites you anymore is itself the doorway to a vastly more expansive way of being in the world. The emptiness you feel isn't the absence of meaning, but the presence of potential, the space necessary for a fundamental reimagining of how you relate to existence itself. This is the profound truth that Kant's transcendental idealism offers us, that what appears as limitation is actually the boundary against which we push to discover greater freedom. To fully grasp this paradox, consider a metaphor Kant might have used. Imagine you've lived your entire life in a single room, finding entertainment and meaning in the objects and activities available there. Eventually, even with rearrangement and creative combinations, you exhaust the possibilities of that room. The resulting emptiness isn't a problem. It's a natural consequence of having fully explored the given space. But this emptiness serves a crucial purpose. It motivates you to look for the door you hadn't noticed before, the one leading to rooms you never imagined existed. The feeling that nothing excites you anymore isn't the end of meaning. It's the beginning of meaning on an entirely new level. What makes this process so challenging in our current cultural context is that we live in a society fundamentally oriented around the continuous stimulation of desires. Our economic systems, media environments, and social structures all encourage us to find fulfillment through endless consumption and achievement, always within the existing frameworks of understanding. When we begin experiencing the natural evolutionary pressure to transcend these frameworks, there are few cultural supports for this transition. The ancient wisdom traditions understood these passages. They called them spiritual awakenings, dark nights of the soul, or transformative initiations. But our modern world often pathologizes them as depression or midlife crises, missing their profound spiritual significance. This disconnect between our soul's natural evolution and our culture's limited understanding creates unnecessary suffering. Kant was revolutionary precisely because he challenged the foundations of how we understand experience itself. Writing in 18th century Prussia, he was responding to a philosophical crisis, the apparent conflict between scientific materialism and spiritual meaning. His solution wasn't to choose sides, but to radically reframe the entire debate by showing how the human mind actively constructs its experience rather than passively receiving it. Today, we face a similar crisis on a personal level, the conflict between our soul's need for continuous transcendence and our cultural programming for continuous consumption. If you've been resonating with what I've shared so far, I want you to know you're not alone on this journey. This channel is dedicated to exploring these profound transitions in consciousness that traditional psychology often misses and popular spirituality sometimes oversimplifies. If you'd like to continue this exploration together, subscribe to join our community of fellow travelers navigating these transformative passages. In the coming videos, we'll delve deeper into how philosophical insights from thinkers like Kant can illuminate our personal spiritual journeys. This isn't about accumulating more spiritual concepts. It's about developing the discernment to recognize when your soul is calling you to a fundamentally new way of being. What's particularly fascinating is how modern neuroscience is beginning to validate aspects of Kant's philosophy. Recent research in neuroplasticity confirms that our brains literally restructure themselves based on how we direct our attention and awareness. The feeling of nothing exciting you anymore correlates with measurable changes in how your brain processes dopamine and other neurotransmitters, not as a pathology, but as a natural evolutionary adaptation pushing you toward new modes of experience. Studies on meditation and psychedelic-assisted therapy show that temporarily suspending our ordinary mental frameworks, what Kant might have called our transcendental apparatus, can lead to profound reorientations in values, perception, and meaning-making. The science is increasingly clear. These transitions are not just psychologically real, but biologically supported aspects of human development. So let's return to where we began, that feeling that nothing excites you anymore. What initially appeared as a problem now reveals itself as a profound invitation. Your soul isn't malfunctioning. It's evolving exactly as it should. The emptiness you feel isn't the absence of meaning, but the presence of a deeper calling, an invitation to transcend the very frameworks through which you've been experiencing life. As Kant might say, you're not meant to endlessly rearrange the furniture within your existing mental structures. You're meant to discover entirely new architectures of consciousness. This journey isn't always comfortable. Evolution rarely is. But there's profound relief in recognizing that your experience makes perfect sense within a larger spiritual and philosophical context. The very feeling that once seemed like a dead end now becomes a beginning, the first step on a path toward a more expansive, authentic, and deeply meaningful way of being in the world. Your soul isn't tired of everything. It's simply ready for something entirely new, a way of experiencing reality that you've yet to imagine. And that, my friend, is the most exciting possibility of all.